I'm having leftover salad with one of those kebabs, so that's the carrot pulp falafel, and it accidentally spilt James's soup when I was pouring it. I tried to make it all nice and beautiful, and it didn't work out. So that's what the falafels look like when they have the sesame seed. And there's my recipe again, and you can see the different amounts. So something to look at. So these three numbers are all together, and we're going to go down and look at that. I hadn't realized that egg whites have so much sodium in them. It's crazy. So that really brought up the numbers. Now another change is I looked online, and yes, white sesame seeds do have protein in them, even though this package, there's the protein right there, claims 0, but not the case. So I was showing against the black sesame seeds yesterday, and I was just going by the package thing. So I don't know. Sometimes it's tough to know who to trust. So James is going to talk about Kubla Khan and a bunch of other stuff, I guess. This dinner is all about him. So there you go, James. Go ahead.
I'm going to start off with something a little bit. We've got this idea rattling around some people's heads that the original sin is capitalism and, frankly, being white, European, whatever. So I'm going to read some of the annals. So this is stuff generally carved in stone, so you can't dispute it. Multiple exemplars. What that means is there are multiple copies again and again and again. We're also going to look at this idea. I saw a kid's book, and presumably for teaching in schools. What was his name? The noble prince of Egypt around the time of the Crusades, the middle part of the Crusades. He was from, I think he was a Kurd actually, but he ended up being the ruler of Egypt. Kind of glitching on his name, but he was supposed to be so enlightened because after he defeated the Crusaders, he allowed them to he kicked them out of Jerusalem. And unlike when the Crusaders took over Jerusalem, there wasn't a general slaughter. The Crusaders, of course, were overstating the case. They were saying that their horses were kind of like wading in rivers of blood and stuff like that. Yeah, spare me. I mean, conquerors overstate the case. Except nowadays, like they didn't when the Iraqis were kicked out of Kuwait back in 1991 or whenever that was. The Republican Guard were the last to leave, roughly, Kuwait, and they call it the highway of death. They were just toasted. They were literally turned into crispy crisps. And the Americans did not want that, footage of that. Some stuff made it out. But we're going to, these folks back here, who are these folks? We're a little bit different.
I have to stop you for a minute.
Okay.
So James wanted me to wear this sweater with these pants, and I cannot. It's too hot. So this is my outfit for today, because it's just way too hot to wear the sweater, even though it's getting to be the end of summer. And
very close to it.
Yes, and so we went to MCC this morning, and the summer clothes is 50% off, but it is not fall yet, so that sweater had to come off. So that's all.
Yeah, that gave me a chance to
collect your thoughts.
Yeah, so it's Saladin. It's called. It's probably more like Salah. Din means religion, actually, in Arabic. I can't remember exactly what Salah means, protector or something like that. Anyway, so he kind of like pardoned the Crusaders and allowed them to stay, just not in Jerusalem. famous third most holy site in Islam. I don't care if it's the first most holy site in Islam. You can't go around claiming other people's most holy site and claim it's yours. And the third, what? Muhammad never was there except in a vision. Check it out. You don't believe me, that's good. But understand, don't be cynical about it. Be skeptical and check it out. You'll find out that I'm right. Okay? Right. Anyway, so here this is an interesting character, Asher Natsarapal, and he loved describing or having his scribes describe how he went about business, shall we say. On the first day of the month of Sivan, so I think that's June, July, somewhere around there, they tended to campaign in the Middle East in the summertime, at least. Not so much, there might be some rain. In the eponemy of Shah Ilima Damka, so that's eponemy, that they didn't number the years, they named them after certain officials. I summoned my chariots and my hosts, that would be, so this translation was done in 1902, somewhere around there. And so it would be his army. It's probably Umanati, stuff like that. It just means a group of soldiers, forces, is what I would say. I crossed over the Tigris. They called it Ediglat, and Tigris is just a very bad rendering of Ediglat. You don't believe me? That's okay. Just check it out and you find out all right. I entered the land of Humuki. I consecrated a palace to the city in the city of Tululi and received the tribute of the land of Humuki. Isn't that nice? He just took tribute. There's no, like slaughtering and all that sort of stuff. I guess they were smart. They figured he was good, and he didn't. He just took tribute. Now, tribute, of course, is a one-time tax, and I don't think he had any right to it. But there you go. From the land of Humuki, I departed, and I entered the pass of Ishtarati. In the city of Kabaki I halted, and I received cattle and flocks and wine and vessels of bronze, the tribute of the city of Kabaki. So that's the kind of tribute he tended to take, right? So even vessels of bronze, that was enough for, and wine, fun times. From the city of Kabaki I departed, and I drew nigh unto the city. Now understand, it was his forces, right? Drew nigh unto the city of Matiati. The city of Matiati, together with the villages thereof, so the city and surrounding villages, I captured. They didn't offer tribute. Oh, well, let's see. Maybe he was like Saladin, this noble prince. Now, 2,800 of their fighting men I overthrew in battle, so presumably killed. Maybe that's the number he was fighting. And their great spoil I carried off. So that's kind of it. He plundered. Oh, but check this out. He's like Saladin here. All the men who'd fled before my arms, so they're the ones who retreated, right? Embraced my feet. In other words, they surrendered. And I caused them to dwell once more in their cities. Oh, there you go. It's just like Saladin, right? And tribute and taxes and overseers I imposed more stringently upon them. So he kind of upped their taxes, and he made sure that he had bosses over them. Okay, I fashioned an image in mine own likeness. It's my own likeness, but there you go. And a record of my victorious might I inscribed thereon, and I set it up in the city of Matiat. Okay, so there's a little bit of I'm going to take a little bit of a break there. Oh, this guy's a bit like Saladin. Of course, I'll tell you a little bit more about Saladin. He dealt with other enemies too, Muslim enemies. Okay, now, the mountain of Kashiari, so that's in present day, basically border between Turkey and Syria, between the Tigris and the Euphrates. We'd call it Mesopotamia, or it would be called Mesopotamia by the Greeks, between the rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates. I crossed over, and for the second time I went down into the lands of Nairi, and the city of Shinagisha I halted. From the city of Shigisha, so welcome to the world of ancient animals. On the previous page, but understand it's just the previous line. It's called Shinagisha, but then next line is called Shigisha. Okay, there you go. I departed, and I drew nigh to the city of Madara, the stronghold of Lapthuri, the son of Thubisi is how they spell it here. The city was exceedingly strong and was girt about with, check this out, 4 walls. Can you imagine the sophistication? This is somewhere about 880, between 885 and 860 BC. So 4 walls. I stormed the city, and they were affrighted at my mighty arms, and their goods and their possessions and their sons as I received as gifts from them. So he took the sons as hostages. And I had mercy upon them, and I spared their lives. Just like Saladin, like Saladin's, about 1100, I think, AD is that, when it would be 1200, be more like it. And here, like almost 2,000 years before, just like Saladin, same, the Middle East, Fertile Crescent. Now, tribute and taxes and overseers, so big bosses, I imposed upon them. And the city I destroyed and laid waste, and I turned it into mounds and heaps of ruins. Yeah, but it gets better or worse. From the city of Madara I departed, and the city of Tushkan I entered. The palace in the city of Tushkan I consecrated. So he took it over for himself, very much like the Muslims did with the holy site in Jerusalem, the Jewish holy site. I consecrated and attributed the land of Nirden. I suspect that's read, could be read in another way, Nirden. Horses and mules and vessels of copper and beakers of copper. I think the Hittites had a slightly different name for Nirden. Copper and cattle and flocks. And wine. I really love the tribute of wine. Received in that, maybe they drank a lot of it, okay? I received in the city of Tushkan 660 strongly fortified cities. I don't know if they'd actually be cities. At the foot of the mountain of Kashiari, which were ruled by Lapthuri, the son of Thubusi. It was Thibisi on the previous page, but welcome to the world of ancient inscriptions. I destroyed and laid waste and turned them into mounds. 60. Now, the numbers are probably inflated, but still, that's incredible. So here he was behaving like Saladin, and now, under different circumstances, he's doing different things. But it gets better, or maybe it's worse. With the help of Ashur my lord, from the city of Tushkan I departed. The light chariots and pick-mounted men I took with me, and on rafts, they had rafts back then. I crossed over the Tigris. All night I marched, and I drew nigh into Petura, the stronghold of the men of the land of Dira. The city was exceedingly strong, and was girt about with only 2 walls, but still. And its citadel was like unto the peak of a mountain. With the supreme, so that would be the fortress kind of inside the city. With the supreme might of Ashur my lord, and this guy's very, very religious, as were all the Assyrian monarchs. And with a multitude of my hosts and of my furious battle array, I fought with them during 2 days from before sunrise. So I think because it took 2 days, he got a little PO'd. From before sunrise, I thundered against them like Hadad. So Hadad was a storm god. He's mentioned in the Bible. He's called generally Hadad in the Bible. The god of the storm. And I rained down flame upon them. With power and might, my warriors flew against them like Zu, the storm bird. I took the city, and 800 of their fighting men I put to the sword. Now, I'd like to think he put to the sword during the battle. Okay? I cut off their heads. Hopefully that was just off of corpses. Many I captured alive. Whew. Oh, what a relief. Many. And the rest of them I burned with fire. So presumably that's the dead corpses. And their heavy spoil, in other words, plunder, I carried up. A pile of the living, I don't know what this is all about. A pile of the living and of heads over against his city gate I set. So, where the living tied up, I don't know. Now here we go. And this is what happened to the men he captured alive. And 700 men I impaled on a long and cruel death. I impaled on stakes over against their city gate. So as an example, right? The city I destroyed. But you see, he's behaving like Saladin actually did in many, if not most, of his campaigns. He forgave the Crusaders because I think he was using them as a kind of as a buffer zone between him and the folks in in Mesopotamia. Destroyed and laid waste, and I turned into mounds and heaps of ruins. And here we go. And their young men and their maidens, they wouldn't be fighting. I burned in the fire.
Oh, you did it on your
Yeah.
Good job. Are you good
The
at
city of
jumping
Kukuna,
stuff?
which is at the mouth of the
you're
pass
good
of the
at
mountain of Matni, I captured, and 700 of their fighting men I put to sword. Hopefully that was in battle. And their great spoil I carried away. 50 cities of the land of Dira I conquered, and I slew their inhabitants. Now, was that like a general slaughter? I don't know. And I carried off their spoil. 50 men I captured alive. Oh, maybe this time he's going to have mercy on these 50 men I captured. And the cities I destroyed. Maybe he's going to have mercy here. Let's see. I laid waste, I burned with fire, and the splendor of my dominions I poured out over them. From the city of Batura I departed, and I went down to the city of Arbaki in the land of Kirki, which lieth over against it. At my royal splendor where they are frighted, he's just using, he's to try and keep the lines, because grammar in ancient Akkadian, i.e. Assyrian, one of the dialects, is very different from English grammar. They were affrighted, and they cast down their cities and their walls, and to save their lives they climbed up into the mighty mountain of Metni. After them I marched. So again, he's just reversing the order, and not the way bad poets have been done it in English for hundreds and hundreds of years, going back to Chaucer. It's just to try and keep similar order to the order in the original. And 1,000 of the fighting in the midst of the steep mountain I slaughtered. Presumably that's in battle. With their blood I dyed the mountain, and with their corpses I filled the hollows and the steep places of the mountain. This is overstatement, but he killed a lot of guys. I don't think he killed 1,000, but who knows. 200 men I captured alive. Whew. Now he's finally got a chance to do a Saladin, eh? And I cut off their hands. And 2,000 prisoners I carried away, and so this would be into captivity. And their, cattle, is that what it was? And their flocks, countless numbers I carried off. Weird name, not a consonant to be found in it. And Saloniba, the fortresses of the city Arbaki I took, and I slew their inhabitants. I carried out their spoil. You know, when slaying their inhabitants, I think he was just kind of like a general slaughter, based on what we've seen in the previous pages. Now understand, you know, someone writing the Cambridge Ancient History is very British, and he talked about the way the ancient Assyrians behaved, especially in the Neo-Assyrian Empire. They did lots and lots of slaughtering. They did lots of ethnic cleansing, although it wasn't known as that back then. In other words, and a lot of the slaughter was war crimes. So what this one writer said was they exercised calculated frightfulness. And frightfulness in this situation is just, maybe the best translation would be something like, in modern day terms, is, and North American terms would be terrorism, okay? Calculated terrorism. So, like, it wasn't invented, all this sort of stuff wasn't invented by the Nazis, it wasn't invented by the fascists, it wasn't invented by so-called white people. Of course, up until very recently, the people in Mesopotamia would be considered Caucasians or Caucasoids or something like that, one of the three great races, along with Negroids and, what were they called, Sinoids or something like that. So, Mongoloids. And, wasn't invented by white people, in modern day use or misuse of the term, and stuff like that. So there you go. Saladin himself was quite capable of brutality. I'll have to check it out. I suspect it was on somewhat the same sort of scale, stuff that we'd consider, and quite rightly, today war crimes. Okay? So get that, put that in your peace pipes, or pot pipes, or whatever you're smoking out there, and smoke. And I just want you to get a, like a perspective on history. I don't want people making stuff up on the whole hog. One of the big problems, it didn't just start with Edward Said, is starting off history at a particular point and going from there. So Edward Said, everything went downhill for him in his book Orientalism in 1798, and that's when Napoleon tried to take over Egypt and stuff like that. And he actually took it over for more than, I think, a couple of years, something like that, maybe even a little bit more than that. It ended up being a disaster for him, like pretty well every one of his long-term ventures. Ultimately it culminated in his disastrous failure in Russia, but like even later on, when he came out of enforced retirement and fought the Battle of Waterloo, it's amazing that he was able to scrape together enough French soldiers to make it a bit of a contest. A disaster there. He was a disaster. His whole life was a disaster, really, and he was a disaster for France. France never recovered from this silliness. Anyway, so I've been reading this book, Kristallnacht. I'm 2/3 of the way through, and I didn't realize the extent of the disaster visited on the Jews in, I believe it was 1938, and that's AD for folks. I don't want you to get too lost. We're shifting almost 3,000 years forward. It looks as though there were 1,000 synagogues wiped out, like smashed, burned up, and stuff like that across Germany and Austria. Stunning. And this is before World War II officially set out. I've maintained that World War II actually started in 1936 or 37, when the war, so-called Civil War in Spain, broke out. It was really a fight between commies and anarchists against fascists and Nazis and stuff like that. They were using their proxies, the Republicans in Spain, and in the case of the fascists and Nazis, they were using the phalanges. That's what they're called. Anyway, not exactly Nazis or even fascists. I think they styled themselves as crusaders. The Nazis and fascists, I think, were fairly secular, and especially in the case of Nazis, thoroughly against Christianity. You might not believe me, but don't be cynical. Well, do. I don't care, really, but doesn't help anyone out, especially yourselves. But be skeptical and check it out when you find out. It's in here in the book. Catholics were slated for the pit, ultimately, in Germany. Of course, many collaborated and stuff like that, and they paid for it. Anyway, it's stunning. They talk about here about a particular synagogue being burnt down in Dresden, and one of the onlookers supposedly said, well, it might take a little while for this to boomerang. They didn't use the term boomerang, but boomerang back on us, and eventually we might burn because of this. So can I find that passage? Yeah. So this is a synagogue taken down in Dresden. It probably wasn't the only one. Okay. A few days later, the blackened shell of the Semper synagogue was dynamited, so it wasn't just good enough that it was burned. The scene being filmed by a camera crew, so this was done. This wasn't just a spontaneous demonstration. As an instructional documentary, when the synagogue was still burning, a local character, Franz Haeckel, turned to Otto Griebel and muttered, "This fire will return. It'll make a long curve." It wasn't that long, actually. "And then come back to us." How long was it? That fire was to come to Dresden 6 years and 3 months later. And different accounts of how many people died, 50,000, 100,000. I ran across a textbook put out by, I'm not going to blame it on a university published, any particular, but I think it was a university publishing company, maybe from England, and it claimed that, how inflation, it's like great inflation or something like that. Inflation, claiming that 200,000 people were killed in the firebombing of Dresden, trying to make the Allies look really, really bad. And the Allies were actually on the side of something like the angel. They were there to end the Nazi regime. And when you look at the fact that the Nazis invented firebombing, they used it multiple times, not just in England, but in Holland, Rotterdam. They had to be stopped, and they had to be stopped right now. They had to be stopped yesterday. And however you do it, if you're just using the techniques, doesn't matter if the techniques are more efficient, if you're using the techniques that were used on you and used to keep the Nazis going, then you are entitled, and I maintain required to do it. A lot of people say Dresden was not a military target. Oh yes, it was. There are many things that make particular locations important. And it's not just, they'll say, oh man, like these are, fake left-wingers. Oh man, no industry there. Well, it was a big city. There would have been at least some industry. It wasn't like the Ruhr, where they had heavy steel industry and stuff like that, over on the kitty corner, the other side of Germany. But you see, in many cases, what's important, what's strategic in a military terms, is location, location, location. So it actually was on one of the two main routes that this was actually done to benefit the Russians, to help them. I swear it was to encourage them to get out of southeastern Europe, stop lollygagging around there, suppressing something like true independence movements, and come in through the Laba River. What's that? The Elbe River, which flows right through Dresden. So it starts off as the Laba River in the Czech Republic. Check it out. Check it out. And but it's also one of the two main routes coming from Poland into Germany. The other goes directly into Berlin. So the Germans are blocking the route from directly into Berlin, come in a little bit south, and coming to Dresden from the south and from the east. And there wouldn't be much resistance there after the firebombing. So it goes. Now the Russians, of course, lollygagged around, stuff like that. They were took their sweet Gluteus Maximus time, and that sort of stuff. A lot of people died as a result. They sacrificed a lot of soldiers, but like the Stalin had way more soldiers. In some of the later battles, they had 3 times the number of soldiers the Germans had.
All right, so you have 16 seconds.
Yeah, so I think it was that, the battle of Kursk, the greatest tank battle, the largest tank battle in the history of the world, just north of Ukraine. So tune in next time. There's going to be some stuff where you're going to have